This is Dead Rising 4. We're on Xbox Series X. And yeah, the game is inheriting its Xbox One X enhancement. That means a boosted resolution over the original version, but I'm not quite sure what we're getting. I know it's not necessarily a 4K target, so keep that in mind. We do have HDR support here. That does look really good. And yeah, this is kind of an interesting release in the series because it basically, I guess you could say, kind of killed the franchise. Now, that's kind of a negative note to make, I suppose you could say, but we're not exactly getting new releases in the series at this point. But yeah, kind of an interesting title. I actually have some fond memories of this one because, you know, I like the Dead Rising series, but also because I was reviewing this ahead of its launch. I actually covered this game before it released because this was, you know, Microsoft published, and yeah, it's just, it's quite fascinating, if that makes sense, just in regards to kind of how this one went over. So, yeah. Dead Rising 4, we once again get Frank West. He's gone back to where things all started, and he's once again dealing with hordes of the undead in this new apocalyptic breakout. I don't know why people wanted to specifically come back to this town and rebuild or whatever, but, you know, all the power to them. Anyways, this is where things get a little bit wacky. It's a very different sort of entry in the series because it streamlined a lot of the things that kind of made Dead Rising unique, I want to say, just in terms of the story setup. You're not really necessarily pushed against the clock. You're kind of doing your thing through the different missions. And it wasn't quite as, I guess you could say, difficult to a degree. It wasn't quite as I don't know, gripping, I suppose you could mention, and it got a little bit sillier. I did like the adjustments to some of the fun elements of the game. You know, they definitely got some great crafting setups. The mech suits feel tonally a bit weird in terms of gameplay. They're pretty fun to use, but yeah, they were definitely a bit strange. And then also the narrative was kind of, I guess you could say, questionable in regards to how some of the characters were treated. I mean, you have to have, I think it's the Frank West or Frank Rising DLC in order to actually even see the full story of the game, which I thought was a bit weird that they would hide that important part of the game behind like a DLC release. It was just a very strange Dead Rising game because there were obviously, you know, some restraints in regards, well, I don't know if you would say restraints or constraints, but in regards to what they were able to do with this one, it seemed like it felt like as though a lot of the actual desired content maybe was almost cut or just not present. Why am I not hitting this guy? My controllers are dying or something, I don't know. This is weird. Yeah, controller batteries are low. Yeah, that's weird. Anyways, like I was saying, it was a very strange entry in the series. They retained the great zombie density that was present within the release of Dead Rising 3, so they kind of kept that, and, you know, they really did use it to its full advantage in regards to the quantity of zombies that are present within the world. It's actually kind of amazing how many zombies are present in this one. Just like the density within the locations and stuff like that really do kind of feel fantastic. I really did like what they did there. And, you know, the comboing's good too. There are a wide range of different sorts of weapons and tools you can use, and then these mech suits, which again, I guess maybe were popular at the time. I don't know, it's a weird direction to go for it. I just don't remember the story part of this necessarily being like super expansive, if that makes sense. You once again had weird costumes, a quirky attitude to it. You could do some funny like designs for your characters wearing. I have no idea what's really going on right now in the game because I'm just sort of playing whatever last checkpoint or something I had set up when I was working on this. But oh, I did not mean to do that. I wanted to actually kind of swap things. I thought you could have a little bit better of an arm. But yeah, you get some neat abilities. You're once again leveling, and you're sort of working through this. I don't know how you would call it, like sort of expansive narrative. Well, that's not really too expansive. And there wasn't as much like side activities to do. They kind of gotten rid of the whole like psychopath system, which I thought was kind of iconic, or they didn't have time to do them. I don't know. It was a very weird game. That's mostly what I want to get across. Is like tonally, I think it was on brand with Dead Rising, but a lot of the elements of it kind of felt like they weren't necessarily a part of the Dead Rising series. I don't know, it was very strange. And then they had like a neat skill system, I guess you could say, where you're kind of boosting up your skills through the different skill trees based on your leveling. So you could do a lot of different things with it, reduce the counter moves, and sure, let's do that one. But yeah, it was interesting, and then you get all these different like kind of combo guides you can follow for vehicles and weapons. And I think a big element of the game in terms of disappointment for some players was in regards to the lack of co-op experience. So they do have this like multiplayer kind of area, but in it you're kind of... It's a bit strange. It's like a very brief sort of thing where it's like a battle for points and that, and it just really wasn't that great. I think I actually got to play with the devs ahead of time, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting extra mode, I guess. I don't know, it kind of felt a little bit tacked on to a degree, if that makes sense. And I think that was just like a weird part of this game in general, was the fact that it just didn't quite come together in a way that really hit the mark for expectations of the series, I think was the big thing. And it also had some like issues around the launch. Now, I will say, I did think this was like a solid game. I think it got a little bit too much negativity from people when it released. You know, I don't think it should have been really what kind of ended the franchise, as to say. Because, you know, I don't think we do have any more planned in the future. I don't think it was that dreadful of a time. I actually had some fun with it and some enjoyable moments working through the story and what it had to offer and the combo weapons, and it just seemed like a interesting natural evolution for the series. And I also like coming back to, you know, Willamette. It's just kind of like an iconic spot in the Dead Rising series. Like it's a series that I think is sort of ripe for doing, you know, multiple different locations. So it's a bit of a waste that they didn't go somewhere else, but at the same time, it's neat to kind of go back to where you started. I'm just not sure I really liked how this character was handled in this one. You know, it just seemed as though story-wise they were maybe trying to set someone else up, and yeah, definitely a weird direction to take for Dead Rising. But once again, you know, you're sort of... There's the mall, obviously. And then on top of that, you're going through this sort of, like, respectfully large outer area. So there's all these different, like, locations, and there's places you can go inside, and shopping spots. So, you know, there's a lot you can do in it, I suppose you could say, in terms of traveling to different places and seeing different sites. Like, the scale of the environment is impressive enough. It's mostly the amount of things you specifically have to do within the environment isn't quite up to what, you know, the standards were at the time, or even now, just in regards, well, now there'd be even more higher expectations. But I'm saying just in the sense that I had anticipated that they would have, you know, gone a little bit more wild in terms of the content that was present here. It just seemed like they didn't really get to take advantage of the full world, because it was missing a lot of these cool things that you would expect if you were coming from, you know, other Dead Rising games. And I think that's the big problem, is failing to hit expectations. Still, like, I mean, like, graphically, it's really good looking. I mean, this is like the pinnacle visually, I think, of the Dead Rising series in terms of like the environments and the aesthetic and the fullness of each area. You know, and there was like secrets in that. That is so creepy. And there were lots of things to see, lots of little zombies and people to deal with and stuff. It's just, yeah, it's a strange one. Oh yeah, I wonder if I have any cooler clothes that I have. Let's see what we're dealing with here. I am a high level, so I think I've unlocked most of the outfits. Yeah, there we go. That's the winner. But it's just, yeah, like, I think there were some good things in this one. And I think there were some disappointing things, too. Oh, yeah, and I think there's, like, the whole Christmas aspect as well. Well, isn't it, like, a sale or something? I don't know. Anyways, Dead Rising 4. And the DLC's kind of neat, and there was one that's kind of like a remix that goes a little bit wild, that's kind of entertaining. It just seems as though, I don't know, it didn't really deliver like it could have. And I think that's a bit of a shame because, you know, we had really great entries before this, you know, leading up to it, that I thought were very well done. I think the series had a lot of promise at this point. And even then after this, I was like, you know what, I'm still looking forward to what they do next. And I'm still hoping that someday we do get, you know, Dead Rising 5 or some sort of follow-up, maybe like a reboot of the series is needed at this point in order to really kick things off. I don't know what you do, but, you know, that's obviously not up to me. It's just, it's an interesting experience. I think, you know, you might enjoy working through the story, exploring the world, seeing what it has to offer. I think at this point it's still like a fairly decent time. And again, it just gets like a really negative rap. And I know a lot of people have different feelings towards what the experience has to offer. But at the same time, I do think it is worth checking out. I think you might have fun playing it. And you might be a little bit surprised by what's present here. It's just, yeah, I know. I remember playing it ahead of launch, and I was just like, it's interesting the choices that they have made with this one. You know, because there's so many options, so many like directions that the Dead Rising series can go. But I think, again, from what I understand of this one and what I've looked into and heard of as time has gone by, that this really was something that was sort of, you know, rushed. There was a lot of pressure to get this one going time-wise, and I think maybe that's what caused some of the problems for Dead Rising 4 with its release and afterwards. Because you don't even really hear people talk about this one or the series as much these days. Is this playing music? I can't even really tell. I'm gonna have to check that out in editing. Let's get going here. I want to get into the mall so we can actually show it off. The Memorial Megaplex. Yeah, again, why would you build in a place where everybody got killed by zombies? Is it like a showing of strength or something? I don't know, but like, look at the density here. Like, that's impressive, right? Like, I think they nailed that. And then also seeing like the performance and stuff like that being all clean, it's kind of impressive. You don't see many zombie games with this level of density to them, I think, is the big thing. And the fact that you can explore the open world so easily, I think the technology behind that element of this is absolutely just fascinating. And I wonder if that technology is even still available, considering the shuttering of the studio and everything behind this, which was a shame because I really wanted to see what they could have done next from these projects, because they basically just like churned out Dead Rising titles, right? But yeah, I think there is a lot of interesting fundamentals of this one. Like, again, you know, you've got a very clean UI system. It's a very intuitive way to handle the various, you know, weapons and items and tools you have. And then you can go in and play this and all the different content and stuff in the DLC. But it's just like, because like, look how seamless this is. Where basically we just went from that outdoor area right into the mall. And we didn't have to face like any loading or anything like that. We're just in here and we're just moving throughout it. That's kind of absolutely fascinating. Now, is this supposed to mirror the opening of Dead Rising 1, this spot? I don't know. Yeah, it's just like seeing the evolution of the mall, I think, is also just absolutely fascinating. Like the increased scale. Like I just played the first one like literally the other day because I was recording it for a review as well. So I do have all of the Dead Rising series covered here. Ooh, 64, nice. So you can see all of the games in action, well, at least all of the main games. But mostly what I'm trying to say is, geez, this guy's kind of tough. you know, it's kind of fascinating how you're able to just transition. You see the original release, which was just a mall, and every area of the mall is kind of like its own small side concentrated thing. And then here, you've got this massively expansive area, and you just kind of seamlessly go through it. Like, I think even this inside area might have more, like, square footage than a large chunk of, you know, the first Dead Rising games mall. And you just see these games sort of evolve year after year, and then in time after time with the releases. It's just kind of, it really does make you think technically what they were able to achieve with this one. It's kind of very interesting. Again, we're like going over to an entirely different area here, and then the movement of the characters a lot better. Yeah, it's quite well done, actually. Oh, it's so shiny, it looks so cool in here visually. I think it's impressive. I don't know. I still like this game. I still like this series a lot. And I'm always curious what people think of long term for these games. I do suggest actually jumping through this and playing it if you look for something, you know, a little bit different. You might like the characters and the story here. It just wasn't quite what we were hoping for as a full release for the thing, and I think that's a big part of the maybe the downfall of this Dead Rising release. Where's the... I feel like you're supposed to be able to get a lightsaber from somewhere around here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, like... when I was playing it back in the day, but there's supposed to be, like, a diamond store here or something. I even made a guide for it, but... Oh, yeah, the controller died there, so we're still rolling. Yep. Anyways, the level of detail here, the full realization, I think, of what the Dead Rising series maybe was kind of going for with its first release. The idea that you could go into this big mall and kind of discover all of these things and have all these different weapons. You know, it does kind of really fulfill that notion. Because there's so many different items here that you can interact with and craft with and destroy things with. I think that's kind of neat. And then it all just kind of moves well, and you can grind up like huge hordes of zombies far beyond the scope of anything that had come in the earlier releases of the series. Is this a dead end here? Can we actually go past this? An event nearby. Oh, how exciting. Yeah, the Survivor events. Yeah, it seemed like they overly streamlined a lot of things, and that kind of really hurt just the scope of it, because I know a lot of people really loved certain elements of what made a Dead Rising game a Dead Rising game. I love that zombie gingerbread guy is like half a person now. It's kind of funny. And then you come here and it just kind of leaves behind all of those iconic elements and in favor of something that feels a lot more simplistic. I think that's really what ultimately was some sort of downfall for this one. But at the same time, it's fun. It has its moments. Maybe up here is where the lightsaber is. I don't know. Crafting. Yeah, but so many different blueprints and weapons and tools and levels, and yeah, I think those systems were well done. It's just ultimately what came together didn't hit the mark. And I've said that a few times, but it really is the truth. The more I play this, the more I think, this was actually kind of a really fun, engaging kind of game. And it had some really fascinating technology that I think I appreciate a bit more now than I ever did in the past. Just because I can look at it from more of a understanding how tech has gone over the years. And I think I can more appreciate what they were going for in terms of the scope. What is going on here? Is there somebody inside there? And it's just, at the same time, I could see, yeah, they really kind of dropped the ball on a lot of the well-loved mechanics, while also really improving the visuals and the UI and how you get around, how you combo weapons and stuff, which was all done very cleanly in this one, very smoothly. And I think that's basically about all I can say for Dead Rising 4. perhaps too intense of a bad rap towards it. I think it could have, maybe had a little bit more goodwill from people. Because again, fascinating that we can go through all of this terrain and it just perfectly fine, like no loading or anything like that. We're just going from area to area and it's just smoothly presenting and I'm not noticing any issues at all. Absolutely fascinates me. It really truly does. I find this so interesting. I think you can climb up there and get up there and there's like a secret room. That's probably a good ending point. But yeah, Dead Rising 4, it has some interesting elements to it. It's still a fun game. I think people were a little too hostile towards it. And yeah, I know it definitely didn't deliver on every element that it was supposed to, but it still can be a fun time for you to enjoy. I just, I kind of wish that you could play this with somebody else. I think that's maybe a little bit of a disappointing aspect of it for me, is the fact that you can't enjoy the co-op, because that would become, for me, a bit more of a staple of what Dead Rising was.